centenary celebration of our icon and the first commander-in-chief of Umkhonto weSizwe, Comrade Rolihlahla Nelson Mandela. Let me first say this came as an instruction from the 2017 National Executive Committee of the African National Congress, that as all the structures of the ANC and the world celebrate the centenary of Nelson Mandela, Umkhonto weSizwe must also develop a program on how are they going to celebrate the centenary of the first commander-in-chief of Umkhonto weSizwe. So we've been planning this thing from last year. Now today we are launching the program of the celebration of our icon and the first commander-in-chief of Umkhonto weSizwe, Comrade Rolihlahla Nelson Mandela. Our statement reads thus: during the 67 years that our late former president, Comrade Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, fought against apartheid for the liberation of our country, he touched and changed the lives of almost every South African. Madiba was truly the father of the nation. Nowhere was his association stronger and influence more direct and greater than with Umkhonto weSizwe and the critical decision to take up arms against the repressive apartheid regime. True to his character as someone who always volunteered and did not wait on others but took the lead, Madiba, as he did when he became volunteer-in-chief during the Defiance campaign, volunteered to establish and lead Umkhonto weSizwe. The founding membership of Umkhonto weSizwe, as personified by Madiba, consisted of the most dedicated and militant cadres of the ANC and the South African Communist Party, who volunteered to join the armed struggle, knowing very well that they were putting their very lives on the line and were prepared to pay the ultimate price. This rich history of militant volunteerism permitted and characterized Umkhonto weSizwe throughout its existence and should be remembered when the ANC today again calls on volunteers to step forward. The volunteerism of the Defiance campaign and joining Umkhonto weSizwe was founded on a selfless commitment to fight for the full liberation of our people and the implementation of every clause of the Freedom Charter. The MKMVA is convinced that if Comrade Madiba was still alive, he would have worked tirelessly for unity in the African National Congress and including in Umkhonto weSizwe. We therefore see it as our duty to follow in his footsteps. Our first commander-in-chief would also have wanted all MK veterans to be united under the banner of one association, which is the MKMVA. Therefore, we commit ourselves to work for unity amongst all Umkhonto weSizwe veterans. The MKMVA embraces the theme of the ANC this year, which is titled The Year of Renewal, Unity and Jobs, and will work tirelessly to make it a reality. We are mentioning this thing because it is a challenge that is facing the ANC of unity. Because if the African National Congress is not united, it will not be able to lead society or be able to implement its programs of action or the resolutions of the conference. So the unity is non-negotiable, is paramount to MKMVA and to all members of the African National Congress. Madiba would also have been deeply concerned about the plight of many Umkhonto weSizwe veterans who live in dire poverty and do not have adequate housing, welfare and medical care.
In this centenary year, MKMVA also dedicate ourselves to honor our first Commander-in-Chief by pulling out all stops to address their plight and to secure for them and their families lives of dignity and comfort. By the way, Mandela was very passionate about the plight of the former freedom fighters, including going outside to raise money for Umkhonto weSizwe when he was released from prison. He did raise money for former freedom fighters of Umkhonto weSizwe, and some of us, we shared it amongst ourselves instead of investing it. But he did have an interest on the welfare of our comrades. If he was still alive, Utata Mandela would be worried if comrades of MK are still suffering like this. The brutal manner in which many of our police officers are attacked and killed by criminals is a matter of grave concern. MKMVA is convinced that there is a deliberate effort to undermine our law enforcement agencies, whose legitimacy and effective operations are critical for the protection of our democratic state. MKMVA calls on all MK veterans to support and work with our police force and all other law enforcement agencies to address the evil scourge of police killings, including the escalation of the heist in the manner that they have been perpetrated, and to support the effective execution of their duties. Madiba would have expected nothing less from the liberation fighters that he led. We are raising this issue because in the manner that our policemen and women are being killed, and in the manner that there is an escalation of the heists, what you call cash heist in our country, it is clear to us as former soldiers that this is to undermine the government of the African National Congress, so that it must threaten stability, so that it must threaten investment, that people will say it is not safe to go invest in South Africa because the level of crime is very high. So we are going to go out as all former freedom fighters, and we call upon all former military veterans, whether you are in SADF or APLA or Azanla or TBVC states, to close ranks and assist our policemen and women to deal with this issue of police killings and the cash heist. And we think if we can close ranks, we can be able to deal with these crimes that are happening in our country. Thus, it is the sacred duty of Umkhonto weSizwe Military Veterans Association, as the custodian of this rich history of the revolutionary umbilical cord between Umkhonto weSizwe and our first Commander-in-Chief, Comrade Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, to have developed a special program of activities to honor Madiba in this year of his centenary. There's a correction, there's not Madiba, it's Madiba. The centenary celebrations program that we announced today is not just a celebration of the past, but it's also very much intended to be instructive for how we should continue to conduct ourselves at this juncture of our liberation struggle in order to successfully conclude the implementation of the second phase of our national democratic revolution and ensure that the full liberation of our people that Umkhonto weSizwe and now MKMVA always fought for will be achieved. You might be aware that we have been quiet for a long time as MKMVA because we have been assessing the situation and trying to make sure that the ANC is united and MKMVA is united. And therefore, it's our call that as we implement the second phase of our national democratic revolution, there is stability in the whole country. There is stability in the African National Congress. If people are disgruntled, they've got issues,
they need to raise them in a proper way. If you are not happy about a particular person, it is not necessary to go and ban a hospital or to ban a school or a library, because tomorrow you are going to need it. I'm raising these issues as an example of what happened in the Northwest, regardless of issues that they had against Comrade Supra. But in the manner that our people behaved, it is uncalled for, and it is unacceptable, and we need to criticize it and condemn it. The centenary celebration program that we announced today is not just a celebration of the past, but it is also very much intended to be instructive. I repeat the same sentence again. Over the next couple of months, MKMVA will proudly host the following events. On the 30th of June, we will be in the Eastern Cape Province, the birthplace of Comrade Utata Mandela, Mvezo, where we'll be having events there, which will be jointly between the ANC, MKMVA, the Youth League, the community, and the family of Mandela Mvezo from his birthplace. Fortunately, I was once there in Mvezo. So the theme of that event, it is from combat to reconstruction and political mainstreaming. That's where Utata Nelson Mandela was born. On the 15th of July, the gala dinner. In Gauteng, we will be hosting this event in Gauteng province, which is Soweto. We'll have the memorial lecture, and the theme for this event, it is a theme that is for now the celebration of the centenary of our first Commander-in-Chief. Then in July, because this is a whole year celebration, why we are not doing it on the 18th, it is because it will now be the ANC and the world that will be celebrating the centenary of Utata Nelson Mandela. Therefore, we're giving that space, and we're joining the African National Congress and the whole world on that day in celebrating the centenary of Utata Nelson Mandela. On Saturday, the 28th of July, it will be the Western Cape. We will be visiting Robben Island, where Nelson Mandela was arrested. We will go to his cell, and later in the evening we'll have the gala dinner. One thing that we did not include here, of course, it will depend on whether we get funding for that. We would have liked to go to Howick, where he was arrested, Utata Nelson Mandela, and we're working very hard to raise funds. That one of our events, it is to go to Howick in KZN, where Nelson Mandela was arrested. As part of honoring the 10th president of the ANC, the MKMVA has requested the ANC president, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, and Comrade Thabo Mbeki and Jacob Zuma, who are the 11th and 12th former president of the ANC respectively, to grace these scheduled events. To that extent, we have written a letter to the leadership of the African National Congress through the office of the SG. We are waiting for the response, but we are expecting a positive response because this is an instruction from the African National Congress that MKMVA must celebrate the centenary of Utata Nelson Mandela as their first Commander-in-Chief. To accompany these events, MKMVA has designed a special centenary logo based on the iconic photograph of Madiba in full MK combat uniform when he visited MK training camps. It is Uganda, not Angola. It is Uganda because we had already withdrawn in Angola by then, shortly after his release from prison. This logo will appear on the clothing items that MKMVA
specially designed to honor the Mandela Centenary celebrations. This, amongst others, include a beautiful designed scarf and Cuban-style cap that you see me putting on. I hope, Neil, you have brought some for our media people here so that they can also celebrate the centenary of Nelson Mandela. They must show their colleagues that this is what we are doing as MKMVA. We have specifically decided on the Cuban cap in acknowledgement of the definitive role that the solidarity of the Cuban nation with our liberation struggle played in securing our liberation. Just recently, we celebrated the 30th anniversary of the decisive Battle of Cuito Cuanaval, where the involvement of the powerful Cuban armed forces under the leadership of El Comandante Fidel Castro sent in revolutionary solidarity to Angola proved to be decisive in defeating the South African Defense Force of the apartheid regime. At Cuito Cuanaval and many other battles, MK soldiers fought shoulder to shoulder with their fellow Cuban compatriots. Although we are not actively involved in Cuito Cuanaval, but we're actively involved in the northern and eastern fronts of Angola, where we're fighting with the UNITA rebels. And that's where we lost most of our comrades. And we hope as we have planned that one day we'll go and exhume their remains and bring them back to their country and be buried and be given a dignified burial. The use of the Cuban cap furthermore acknowledges the close brotherly relations that existed throughout their lives between Comrade Nelson Mandela and El Comandante Fidel Castro. As we conclude, the centenary logo will also be prominently on display on all the banners that will form the backdrop to all the centenary celebration that MKMVA will host this year, as well as all other MKMVA activities and statements and publications that we will issue during the course of this year. We are proud to put this here on display for the media to view and to report on, so that as we speak about the centenary of Nelson Mandela, you don't just show Mandela from prison, but you now show the side of Mandela that he was a member of Umkhonto weSizwe. Where uniform? There, in his uniform. So on that as was never going to as the custodian as you celebrate it. Don't forget that he was once the commander-in-chief of Umkhonto weSizwe and the first commander-in-chief of South Africa and a new army in South Africa. MKMVA furthermore invites the media to write about this centenary celebration events and to popularize them in the spirit of celebrating the iconic life of the father of our nation. The media is invited to use the MKMVA Nelson Mandela Centenary logo when reporting on all these activities. MKMVA will ensure that quality copies of high resolution will be available for your use, working closely with you, the media, as our friends, because we know without you, our message won't be able to reach our people. And we appreciate for you to come to our launch, so that as we talk about this history of
the struggle of our struggle icon, a hero, a giant, a leader of Umkhonto weSizwe. You support us in popularizing this event. We hope maybe more sponsors would come on board to support the technical team of MKMVA led by Comrade Nel de Beer to make it a success that will ultimately go to Howick. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Kebi. Ladies and gentlemen, if there are any questions, this is now the time for you to raise your hands and ask those questions. Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just wanted to get a comment on the current events since the weekend. MKMVA member was shot dead at a regional conference. And there also appears to be no less up in the politically motivated killings in KZN. And in one way or another, these killings were linked to the elective conference, whether regional or racial. And perhaps this is symptomatic of the wider problem of how the contestation of oppositions generates to violence. Therefore, why are ANC members killing each other with oppositions? And I'm perhaps concerned that the contestation of political power has now brought in a subculture of violence.
Thank you, Bonolo. Cindy, I'll ask, we'll do, because there are not many of us here, we'll do the whole number of questions and then give our leadership here an opportunity to respond. Cindy?
Thank you so much. My question is in regards to something you alluded to when you were proposing this, and was mentioning that the violence that actually happened in the Northwest should not have transpired in the way that it did. But leading up to that, we also have a recording where Super actually mentioned in the report saying that he feels also there's a purge that's happening, or he feels also is targeted. Does the MKMVA believe that there is a target to those that supported Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma before the national elected conference?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Umkhonto. I want to raise whether MK can support by general speaking and as part of the celebration, because you spoke about youth and their that the two affairs to bust apart. I want to know because of their plans to unify MK better access to that political relation. And then my second question is on the political prisoners. We still have prisoners from those who are aligned to case in the other, and for those from IFP who are still in prison. Whereas we don't have any, from the public side, former generals and we sort of even former the security officer. Whereas those from PAC and IFP are still in prison. I want to know, your take on this one, whether you are trying to push to make sure that all political prisoners are released from prison. Thank you, that's mine.
Thank you. Any other questions? No more questions. Comrade Kebi, Comrade Jan, if you want to respond.
Let me start with this one, the last one that raised by Montlenyana Dipuku, is that indeed it is our program of action and one of our resolution that we'd want all those comrades who were arrested for politically motivated activities, underline, for politically motivated activities, be released. We have started that. Fortunately, the person who have just come in, Masichaba Mutloung, she's the one who's heading that thing, including the expansion, is a correct English, expungement of the criminal records. I was listening to one radio station today that one person is from prison. He graduated, he's a lawyer, but he can't practice because of this criminal record. Equally so, we have got many of our MK cadres who were arrested when we came back from exile. They have educated themselves, some are still in prison, some are out, and they are highly qualified. But they can't get employment because of this criminal record. So we are persuading, we are in engagement with the Justice and Correctional Services Department that we should separate these criminals. We must have your politically motivated activities which made our people to be arrested and they are now out. That by then the TRC, it did not also address all the issues of our members, including the APLA cadres. I don't want to be a spokesperson of the IFP and other associations. I will speak when I'm a deputy minister somewhere. But now I'm wearing the cap of MKMVA. I will speak on behalf of MKMVA. But it's our wish that all former freedom fighters who were arrested for politically motivated activities be released or be given a pardon, and the expungement of these criminal records. Because why we call it correctional services, it is because we think those people have been rehabilitated. And I can speak from the side of the MK comrades, which I know. Some of them, they're just 2 weeks they were released, they called me. And I trained them in Uganda. They were arrested for killing white farmers before they went to exile. But when they came back for integration, when they went on leave at Valmansdal during integration, they were arrested and sentenced to life. It's just now that they have been released. So there is somewhere that our organization also did not treat our MK comrades correctly. And we're trying to address that. Such comrades must be reintegrated back into society. So how do you expect to reintegrate criminals back into society, but you deny them a role to play, an active role, like practicing as lawyers? You are not reintegrating them to society. You have not corrected them. So they will become disgruntled and do one and the same thing. So those who have been rehabilitated, we think the issue of expungement of the criminal records should be prioritized. It is our program as MKMVA. We are in discussions with the MK Council Montanyana Dipuku. Just last week on Tuesday, we had a meeting with them convened by the Peace and Stability of the ANC, which is chaired by Comrade Tony Yangeni. I'm not privy to make those pronouncements for now. It is Comrade Tony Yangeni who will make a pronouncement on the progress made on our engagements with the MK Council, because we want unity. So we will be inviting them into this event, because it's not an event of MKMVA. It's an event of all former members of Umkhonto weSizwe. Mandela was a commander-in-chief of all former members of Umkhonto weSizwe. So as the leading structure, we are calling upon all former members of Umkhonto weSizwe to support this program of our first commander-in-chief. So indeed, we will be meeting, we are meeting with MK Council. We will be involving them in this program of celebrating Nelson Mandela. And we think, as we have said in our statement, it will make a way of coming together as former Umkhonto weSizwe members
and become united. Bonolo, indeed, the political events, whether politically or not, it is worrying also to us. And that is why we are calling upon all our former members of Umkhonto weSizwe to assist the African National Congress and to assist our police and our intelligence services to make sure that these killings that are happening in the country, they must come to an end, and those perpetrators are exposed and are arrested. It is worrying to us, but we have not yet found out or concluded that indeed this was a political killing, unless if there's a proof that somebody was arrested because he was contesting with Comrade Kirby and they planned to kill or assassinate him because they want position. So these are still allegations, and we want to allow the law enforcement to do their work, and we know that the Minister of Police and the President himself has prioritized, he went to KZN himself to show that he's serious about these things of the killings, to prioritize the investigations and to ultimately stop these killings. We know that previously, we remember in KZN was unstable because there was a third force involved. So we're not saying there's a third force now, but we are saying we need, as MKMVA members, to assist the African National Congress. And the instruction has been issued by the Commander-in-Chief, President Cyril Ramaphosa, that these things must come to a stop. We must, as MKMVA members, assist the African National Congress. It can't be our members who are killing each other. It is wrong. It's reactionary. It's counter-revolutionary. Those people do not belong to the ANC if indeed it is about political contestation. But generally, everybody knows that when there are elections, there is contestation. It's normal. There's nothing wrong. But if a contestation, it is going to be physical and be bloody, it's no more contestation. It's criminal activities. And it's counter-revolutionary, and the ANC must be able to deal with it brutally. If it can be found out those are members of the ANC who are involved in those activities, they don't deserve to be members of the ANC. They must go and rot in prison. In Mpumalanga yesterday, it was not an MKMVA vis-a-vis MKMVA killings. The information that we have now, which we're still waiting, unfortunately our Deputy President, that is why he's not here. He is attending to that issue in Mpumalanga because he's from Mpumalanga. They have went to the family and investigating. It's that there was a conference of the ANC Youth League in Mpumalanga, and MKMVA normally it is used to protect or to bring order in the meetings of the ANC. So there was a scaffold there, we were told, and when they were trying to assist, and they are saying the information that we have is that those people were not even delegates at the conference, but there were people from nowhere who came in and they started shooting. So we will issue out a statement very soon once the Deputy President of the MKMVA gives us a briefing, but we are very worried, very, very, very worried about what transpired yesterday in Mpumalanga, that it seems as if the issue of coming with guns into the meetings of the African National Congress, it is becoming normal. And we want to say to you, the media, that the ANC must make sure, and MKMVA, rest assured, one, person called me yesterday that I don't want to mention his name, that he's being arrested for the killing. And I said, submit yourself to the police. He's with the police, he's under arrest now. We're waiting for the further information. As I'm saying, later we will issue out a statement in regards to that, but we have lost one of our members who was doing a very diligent duty of defending the ANC meetings, because sometimes these criminals, they disrupt conferences or BGMs of the ANC. I think the Northwest issue, you see, we as MKMVA were very frank, and we were taught this thing in the camps, that there's constructive criticism and self-criticism, and if there's something that is wrong, we must say it as is, and not to hide it, because it is going to create a problem. There was contestation towards the conference, and there was preferences. And the preferences, it was between Comrade Nkosazana and Comrade President Cyril Ramaphosa. And we as MKMVA, we remember, we repeated that thing, that before the conference, we'll accept the outcome of the conference. And we have made that, we're continuing. That is why even in our statement, we're calling for unity in the African National Congress. We are not aware of any patch as MKMVA. But in the manner that we have observed things, you see faces of the African National Congress members and alliance members issuing out statements. And it's a worrying factor to us, and we want the ANC to be decisive on that matter, that it must not just be left like that. Where we are seated is that they might have influenced the communities to uprise against the leadership of the Premier Supra Mahuma bill, where we are seated as MKMVA. Because in the manner that they have been issuing statements, it is clear that there have been a deliberate plan to overthrow Premier Supra Mahuma bill. I don't have a problem if people have challenges about me or Premier Supra Mahuma bill. It should be clear that they must raise their issues according to the procedure of the ANC. But in the manner that thing that has been happening, and listening and watching ANC members issuing statements, and the alliance structures members issuing statements, to an extent of shutting down a hospital and people die, it can't be right if you call yourself a revolutionary. You close down a hospital and you say you are a leader of society, you want to defend the revolution and the people, but you don't allow them that facilities. People died in Northwest. We can't condone that. It is wrong. Whether there are challenges or what, but it is wrong for our alliance structures to would have allowed the membership to shut down hospitals. Those are essential services. That is why the army went there, to assist. So we are saying as MKMVA, we are not aware of the patch for now, but in the manner things have been unfolding in Northwest, seeing ANC and the alliance structures leaders issuing out statements, it is clear that there's factionalism. What is very rife in Northwest, but it can be correct, and the ANC can't allow that thing to happen like that. So I think we want to call upon our people in Northwest that let them calm down, let them give the leadership of the ANC space, let them give down the leadership of President Cyril Ramaphosa space to resolve these issues, as we have alluded according to the crime, that this way the president is calling for investment. Here in the country, we see an opposite thing, that crime it's going up. Killings of the police is going up. It's not happening in the world. It is here in South Africa. So as MKMVA, we can't sit back and not analyze correctly. We will analyze correctly, and in the manner that they are being, actioned. You see, these are professional people. They have rehearsed these things many a times. And in the time that they do that action, it tells you something. That is, it's not just your normal civilians who can do such things at a space of time. We are speaking from experience here. That's why I'm saying that we will say things as they are as MKMVA. But in the manner that things are happening, we suspect that there might be an element of military style, and it might have an element of an inside job. We don't rule out disgruntled, whether there are police or security people that are involved, but the style of that modus operandi tells us something that even when we're trained to do operations, we knew that it must be time and space. And in 3 minutes, you are finished, you are done, you are gone, out of space. A normal civilian will never pull such a mission. So we must not be afraid to say we suspect that there are some element of military and police tendencies there. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I think I just would like to add 2 points to what Comrade Kebi said. I think we have to be very careful as the African National Congress what happens on social media. And some of the attacks that took place on social media can create the impression that informally among some members of the African National Congress there's a tendency to try and purge others. That does not mean that formally we believe or understand that there is any such purge. But the behavior of some members of the ANC on social media is unacceptable. And in due course, the African National Congress will have to face this issue, and where necessary will have to take the necessary disciplinary action against such members. We also have a tendency that all kinds of informal organizations and structures seem to talk on behalf of the ANC or purport to talk on behalf of the ANC. There's this structure that talks in the Northwest that call themselves the Revolutionary Council. Now that structure has got no representative right, and it does not talk on behalf of the ANC or any of the structures of the African National Congress. Let me just conclude by saying something about this issue of the expansion of criminal records. I myself, as I stand in front of you here, had been found guilty of high treason. That criminal record had not been expunged. So it still formally, although it is obviously not acknowledged by the South African government, stands. And when one travels and when you go to countries such as the United States of America, it becomes a problem. So we really should pay attention to this issue, formally expunge those criminal records. So when we travel, we do not rely on the mercy of the goodwill of any country, including the United States, to give us all kinds of exclusions on visas in order to be able to travel freely. So ladies and gentlemen, these are some of the issues that needs to be addressed. Thank you for coming to this press conference. I'm happy that we had the number of people from your side who turned out today, because sometimes we tend to get a full house when there's a negative story. But when we have a positive announcement and presentation as we have today, celebrating the life of Comrade President Nelson Mandela, the media do not seem to think always it's worthy to report it. So we thank you for coming to report on this. I see that my comments now have generated a question. Please proceed.
You spoke about in our concern that some of these education ties may be committed by people who are well-trained. In the past, there were speculations that former armed soldiers from our neighboring country were in the country and they were appointed as part of this security company, private security company. And there was the biggest case we had at the OR campus some years back, and those who were involved, they were caught at the Bible trying to cross to our neighboring country. So are you concerned that some of these former soldiers from our neighboring countries were involved in this case? You spoke about some of them babies. I mean, it's quite clear that they are. They know what they're doing. They are military experts. Are you saying that? Are you actually implying that our former soldiers from our neighboring countries are involved in some of this education exercise?
Comrade Yanganetse will respond, and Comrade Kebi afterwards if he still wants to.
Yes. No, thank you. I think we are equally very much disturbed by the rate at which this cash-in transit are happening. It is quite shocking. I'm told there was a cash-in transit today in Polokwane, somewhere in Muleji. We are very much disturbed as MKMVA, but we have a very strong belief that our intelligence, our police are doing their best to unmask. At this point in time, we don't want to speculate and qualify the belief that this might be as a result of foreign people that are here from foreign countries. We don't want to believe that, but I'm very much under the impression that the police are working around the clock. We had a number of successes, a number of culprits were arrested in the past week, and I strongly believe that the Minister of Police, Comrade Becky Cele, together with the National Commissioner and the team within the law enforcement agencies, are working around the clock. We are at the same note calling on our MKMVA structures to put an ear to the ground and report. Crime prevention is not only the responsibility of the police, it's a collective responsibility. The citizen, our people in general, should have a very serious contribution towards stopping this. We cannot have a situation where every day we get stories of cash-in, and the method in which these things are done. Explosives are used. It only sends us a message that we are actually having a very big problem. But I'm very sure that very soon the people that are involved will be arrested. And then, out of the complexion of what we'll be having, of the people that are arrested, we can only give you an accurate statement. Thank you.
Yes,
that MKMVA media briefing with regards to what's been taking place and honouring Madiba in the year of Madiba, coming to us live from Luthuli House. Of course, the leader there, Kebi Matsoy, of course, addressing the media there with their plans and how they plan to commemorate Madiba throughout this year, as well as also condemning the recent attacks and police killings that we've seen in KZN, as well as the ongoing violence and unrest in the Northwest. We'll take a short break here on SABC Newsroom. When we come back, headlines on your top stories.